Hi everyone, I'm Wardah, a STEM Scholar Mentor, and today we'll be going over the second lesson of Unit 5 of Algebra 1, Graphing Linear Functions. So in the graph of an equation, there are three main things to note. The first is that the graph of an equation represents the set of all points that satisfy the equation. So in the graph, there will be every single coordinate that will be inside of the graph will satisfy the equation. So if you plug it into the equation, if you plug in an x value for x and a y value for y, it should add up. The second is that each and every point of the graph of an equation represents the coordinate pair that can be substituted in the equation to make the equation true. So basically what I just said, the coordinate pair should add up once you substitute it into the equation. The last one is that if a point is on the graph of the equation, the point is a solution to the equation. Now, we're going to go over how to graph equations. For any equation, linear, quadratic, etc., you can use the table of values method. So, in this method, you can create a table of values, or they can give you a table of values, but once you create your table of values or have it given, you're going to plot each coordinate pair onto the graph and then sketch the line through those points. The next one is to graph a linear equation, and there are two methods for this. There's the 2 points method and the 1 point and slope method. So in the 2 points method, if you know the points on the line, simply plot both of them and draw a straight line passing through the 2 points. And for the 1 point and slope method, if you know 1 point on the line and the slope of a line, then use the point and the slope to draw a right triangle to find the second point. Then draw a straight line passing through the 2 points. Now, the last one is to graph a nonlinear equation. You can use the table of values method, and we'll get more into nonlinear equations later. But just remember that it's best if you have at least 3 points to graph a nonlinear equation. The more points that you have, the better it'll be. So when finding x and y intercepts, first let's go over what intercepts are. So an x-intercept is when the point on the graph touches the x-axis. So if there's a point that touches the x-axis, then we know that the y will always equal to 0. So here's an example on how to solve it. So here we have our equation, y equals 2x plus 8. Because we're trying to find the x-intercept, we want y to equal to 0. So we're going to turn y into 0 by substituting y as 0. And then we're going to solve as usual. And we found our y-intercept to be -4. Now the x-intercept to be -4. Now for the y-intercept, we have basically the same thing, but it's when the point on the graph touches the y-axis, so then x is equal to 0. Here's an example. So we have the same equation, but now that we're looking for the y-intercept, we're going to substitute x for 0. And we're going to solve it as usual. Our y-intercept is 8, and our x-intercept was -4. So when graphing, we always want to make sure that we know which way our slope is going. So a positive slope looks like this. It goes from left to right, which means that our rate of change, our slope, will be positive. And the negative slope goes the opposite direction, so it goes down from left to right. A 0 slope is a horizontal line because it doesn't have a slope. It just stays straight. It has a slope of 0. And an undefined slope is a vertical line. So now we're going to do this question together. It says, Super Painters charges $1 per square foot plus an additional fee of $25 to paint a living room. If X represents the area of the walls of Francisca's living room in square feet and Y represents the cost in dollars, which graph best represents the cost of painting her living room? So, we see that this company, Super Painters, charges $1 per square foot, which means that this will be a linear equation because it's it's a constant rate of change. It doesn't change up. It's always going to be $1 per square foot. So since it's a positive value, number 1 is a positive value, and it's going to go up plus every square foot that you order, you'll always have $1 plus. So we know that this is going to be positive. So we can already cancel out B and D because these are going down. So we know that these are negative slopes. So we have A and C. And now we're going to note that they said that there's an additional fee of $25. So we know that in comparison to a normal graph, usually they start at 0. So they would start from here. But because we have an additional fee of $25, that $25 is already put into our graph. So here, it starts at 25, but from the x-axis. And here it's labeled that that's the area. So this is not the correct graph. But here, it starts from 25 in the cost. So this is $25 that we're starting at. And if we, we note that this is a positive slope. It's increasing, it's constant, it's going up by 1. Look at our rise and run. So we have 1 up, 1 rise, 1 to the left, 1 run. So we know that this is, answer choice C is our correct graph. Now, I want you guys to do these 2 questions on your own. So just pause the screen and complete them, and then we'll go over them together. Okay, so here are the answers that you should have gotten. Number 1 is 2, and number 2 is 1. So, for the first question, it says, which graph shows a line where each value of y is 3 more than half of x? So, we went over this in our last lesson, how to turn English into math. So, they're saying the value of y is 3 more than half of x. Half of x would be 1/2 x, and then 3 more than that is plus 3. So we're looking for a graph that shows y equals 1/2 x plus 3. So let's look for it. So here we have our plus 3, and this is our y-intercept. Because y is equal to 0, this is our y-intercept, this is our slope. This is put in in slope-intercept form, so we know that this is y equals mx plus b is always our y-intercept. So we're going to look for a graph where there's a point that hits 3 on the y-axis. So here, there's nothing hitting the y-axis, it's hitting it right at 0. So we know that this is not our answer. For 3, 1, 2, 3, it does hit the y-axis. But now let's check for our slope. We're going to use rise over run. So we're going to do it for this point. We have 1, 2, 1. So our slope for this graph is 2 because we have 2 for rise and then 1 for run. So this is not our graph. For choice number 2, 1, 2, 3. Our y-intercept for this graph is 3. So we're going to check out the slope now. Let's start from here. And we're going to calculate it up until this point here. So we have 1 as our rise and 1, 2 as our run, so our slope is 1/2. Our answer is choice number 2. For the second question, it says the value of the x-intercept for the graph of 4x minus 5y equals 40 is... So we have our equation here, and since we're asking for the x-intercept, we're going to substitute 0 for y, sorry. So once we solve this, we get 4x equals 40 because 4x minus 0 is just 4x. And then we're going to divide both sides by 4. We get x is equal to 10. So our x-intercept is 10, which is choice number 1. That's all for this lesson. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to contact my email here. And if you're looking to practice with any additional resources, JMAP and Khan Academy are some great ones.